um, before we open up for questions, which I'm sure both of you will have. And by the way, since it's just the two of you here for right now, please feel free to ask as many questions, even if you know the answer to them, just because I think that'll help people who are unable to attend the session. But the first thing that I want to mention is some housekeeping things. First off, I'm just more than halfway, probably about 60-70% of the way with finishing up your hot newspapers. Many of you may already have seen them in your shared folder. Uh, One thing I do want to mention is that make sure that when you guys are submitting your um, assignments, that you are not submitting your assignments in your shared folder. You're not dropping anything off into that folder that you have with your name on it. Whenever you need to submit something, you always use the links that are included in Blackboard for the assignment. I had a couple of people who marked them as not turning a paper in, and then I go and find out as I'm looking through the submitted folder that there they are sitting there, uploaded to the personal folder. I don't look at the personal folder in order to find who turned what in. That's just that's just an outbox for you to be able to see your grades, and your graded work that you submit. So please make sure that you are not submitting your papers into the shared folder, the one that has your name on it, the one that you got an invitation to. So that's one thing I want to mention. You should notice that those are getting posted up. I'm also updating a lot of grades, so you should have already seen a bunch of that happen. If you haven't, I know Blackboard's uploading some stuff, and I'm putting some more stuff in there. So that's all I'm working on today, is just grades, 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 grades. I want to have you guys have a good idea of what's going on. Second thing that I want to mention is I want you to be sure that you are actually looking at the prompt and looking at the writing checklist. And if you need reference, be sure to look at the writing uh, checklist video lecture that I give, where I go over kind of like common standards and best practices. That's included above the prompts whenever I have a written assignment. Please make sure that you're looking at that. I'm seeing a lot of people using first person. I'm seeing a lot of people giving commentary on the assignment, which was specifically not asked for. So please make sure that you're actually reviewing the prompts and reviewing the papers. As of this point, if things are late, I am counting them as late. There's no grace period anymore. So I understand at the beginning of the quarter, there was, technical issues or just kind of getting your way about things. I will, if something's, if it's due at 11:59 and it's turned in at 12 midnight, the fall, considered the following day, it is late and it will be deducted 5 points. Because at this point, you guys know better than to be turning stuff in a minute beforehand. By the way, it's not YouTube, but it's just I have to explain this to everybody. So that's something that I want to keep in mind. The other thing that I want to mention is to make sure that you are all watching the lecture videos in a timely manner. This is still becoming a problem, that people are not watching the material, in a reasonable amount of time. Just because I posted, I don't expect you to watch it immediately. But, if it's 72 hours, 3 days later, and you haven't even touched it, if I post it on Monday or Tuesday, and you're not watching until Friday, Saturday night, you're missing 3 days or 4 days that you could have figured out and planned. Even if you weren't working on it necessarily, you were at least kind of getting an idea of what you wanted to do. I'm noticing a lot of people are, because it shows in your work. I can see people's papers where they're not they're kind of look like a rush job, and then I go back and look at like when like the access was on Blackboard to like the material, and it's like just a day or two before the actual assignments due. So you're not going to do well in this class if you're putting everything off. I know that it's a little bit more difficult in a virtual environment, but you definitely need to do that. So otherwise, it's basically not showing up to class. Like I said, this is just the avenue and the means of which I get to talk to everybody. So don't, Brianna, Freddie, don't take this personally. Uh, Other thing that I want to mention is, now that being said, what is it that we're doing next? And so what we're doing next is we're going to be working on our journal article analysis. And what the journal article analysis will be is that you're going to be looking at just one journal article and you're going to be breaking it down into its different parts. What was the hypothesis? What was the conclusion? What were the findings? What are the implications? And then I ask a very interesting one: what is the relevancy for future studies? Well, this is a nice little coded message a question that I ask, meaning, why is this relevant to the topic that you chose? And so, so the question is essentially, how is this going to be used in the final? And you don't say, well, I think I'm going to use it like, no, you don't do that. You go, this paper is relevant for future studies because it has a study on, this is relevant to the discussion of DACA because it goes over psychological effects of child detention, period. Like, and that could really be the end of it. The thing is I don't understand. A lot of people have this intention or this idea that all these questions I ask need to have these long paragraph long answers. Some of them are a sentence. Like, why is this relevant? Well, this paper is relevant because it's going to look into, it talks about universal health care in other countries, and this is a good comparative analysis study in order to look at universal health care in the United States, period. It's one sentence. That answered the question. And so don't feel like you have to be writing War and Peace whenever you're trying to answer a question. It could be as simple. Sometimes the answer is just, this isn't applicable or this isn't relevant. Like, there were no holes in the argument. I asked a question about if it was easy to understand. And if it is easy to understand, well, then give me a sentence or two explaining, well, why was it easy to understand? Were there resources given? I think that's one of the pitfalls of the hot newspaper that I found with a lot of people is, the BBC went over a couple of things and then ABC also mentioned the same stuff. But, well, what stuff? Like, what is it that they actually talked about? That they talk about they had a similar timeline? Or, like, you don't need to sit there and quote me for a page and a half, which was another issue. But I think that's a separate issue, where people are going, oh yeah, well, they had multiple things that were similar and they both went over the history. Well, what specifically? Like, all you needed is one more sentence saying, well, this is going to be relevant because of X, Y, and Z, or these are similar because they both talk about the history at the the Reagan Border Patrol Act, and they exemplify X, Y, and Z. One sentence, just to explain, like, what is it that they exactly are sharing. So that's another thing. Like, you just need to add that one or two more sentences of detail when you're saying, like, okay, there's something going on. If you say, yeah, if you're looking at the journal article analysis and go, yeah, the journal article was easy to follow. Well, why? Like, well, what was it? Like, it was well laid out. It explained its terms. It made sure to bring it was well organized. It explained the, like, a regression chart, or explained what happened in the graph. It didn't just, like, say C figure 1 2 or something like that. Just give me kind of a reasoning for why you came to that. Or why wasn't it easy to understand? What was lacking in it for you to not understand it, or for you to not grasp it, at least first read or two around. I'm expecting you, by the time that you're done with these, by looking up your journal articles, that you have read them multiple times. You can't just, there's no way you can write this paper just reading your journal once. No way. you've got to be able to read it, a multiple times for you to have a better understanding of it. And you have to understand that when you're doing this, you're doing work for your final. All of this stuff that you're doing is you're doing double duty. You're doing research for your final as well that you don't have to do later. And by reading the journal articles, you have a better understanding of what you're writing. You're already prepping the research for your final, because yeah, it's like 2 months away. Those 2 months are going to creep up real fast. The final is scheduled, I think, for May 18th. Is the day when the final paper is due. I think that's what's scheduled. So that's 2 months from now. That's gonna, and so the majority of March is going to be dominated by what we're doing here. The rest of March is going to be dominated by the journal article analysis, and then into the first week of March. And then in April, we're going to do is mostly going to be working on outlining the final, doing the annotated bibliography for the final, and setting up for presentations, which will be the last 2.5 weeks of class. And then the final papers due the last day of class, last day of the quarter. And then that's it. And so we're more than halfway right now. So those are the things I want you to keep in mind. The next thing that I want you to look at, while thinking about this, is that knowing that the journal articles that you're looking for are going to be important towards your final, I want you to be able to find 3 really good articles that have something to do in relationship to your controversial topic. Drug testing for those who are welfare recipients, or DACA, or reinstating DACA, or the assault weapons ban, video game bans on video game violence or video game censorship, whatever it may be, mandated vaccinations. Whatever you're doing, you want to make sure that you're giving yourself, you're really putting the time in now to get this stuff done. Because here's the cool thing: once you do this, once you are able to do once you're able to do all this research, and let's say that you find a whole bunch of stuff and you end up saving it, as you'll notice in the lecture that I give for looking up journal articles, I encourage you to save the stuff that you're finding. Because when you do the annotated bibliography, it's going to ask you, hey, make sure that you include 5 journal articles. Make sure that you do citations for 5 journals with small summaries. And you're going to be like, oh, cool, I have all this stuff already, because you've already done it when you're looking for your stuff. So even though I'm asking for 3, save as many as you can. Save all the ones you think are relevant. Because when you get to choosing the rest of your material, you already kind of have a leg up on doing it. And so that's what I would really encourage you to do. So what is it that you should be looking for? The things that the requirements for it are that the paper should be the article that you find should be longer than 9 pages or more. 9 pages to 47, 50 pages, whatever it may be. The reason why I ask for 9 pages or more is that in trying to write a 3-page lit review of a journal article that is 4 pages long, you're basically just reiterating what the paper did. So you're actually going to do yourself a favor by having a longer article. The bigger the article you can find, the better, and the more relevant it is. So if you find a 20-page article, think about multiple things. 1, that is probably going to give you a lot of information that you can use for the final. 2, it gives you a lot to talk about and summarize in the paper that you're about to write, the journal article analysis. And 3, if it's that in depth, there's probably a lot of other cross-referenced information in there that you can go ahead and look up that will then be relevant to you. So, and I mentioned this within the journal article research video, that don't ignore the notes section in the back, the references section in the back, because if there's something in there that's referenced that's really relevant to what you're talking about, you can go and look it up. And that's a really easy way of doing it, is just having the references right there in the back. So I know some people have the compulsion, like when they're printing this stuff out, to not print the notes section, because who needs that? It's really important, because it makes it a lot easier for you to find this stuff. I know that Freddie, you had mentioned something I saw in an email, and I want to address it here. You don't have a time. There's no time limit on or time frame of when you can look at this stuff. It can be from any year that you find relevant. At this point, I'm giving you kind of a lot of free reign to do what you want in terms of looking for material. Um, Same thing goes with newspaper articles. When you start pulling stuff up for annotated bibliography in about 2 weeks, it'll be your it'll be the journal article analysis, and then the following week will be the annotated bibliography. And you'll get the prompt for that as soon as the rough drafts are done. That way you kind of have, it's not so much that you should be doing it, but that way you can just have a leg up on it when you turn in the final draft for your journal article analysis. You kind of already know what's coming up. Because next week, as the rough drafts are going on, we're going to be doing argumentation and rhetorical fallacies. And so that's going to be pretty fun. I have a pretty funny lecture that I think you'll enjoy. It's a little dated now. You'll see why when you watch it. But I think it's pretty good. And there's an accompanying workshop with that. I would do that as early as you can at the beginning of the week. I'm going to be posting that up tonight, just if you want to get a leg up on it. Simply because of the fact that, and there's three things. There's a lecture, there's a video workshop, and then there's an actual like workshop assignment that's involved. It's just another Google Forms that you can do as many times as you want. It's scored like how the comma one is, but you can keep taking it until it's 100. Now I'll just give you an idea of what's up. And so that's what you're going to be doing there. So that kind of gives you an idea of what's going on for the week. That being said, let me go ahead and open it up to questions, and then do me a favor. Even if you know the answer to the question, this is for YouTube. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to go ahead and ask me those.
I just want to confirm, because you said the rough drafts are going to be next week. They'll do the 30th, right? The rough drafts?
Correct. The 30th. Yeah, that's right. Thank you. Sorry, I already thought it was the 20-something. I'm like 5 days ahead already. I'm already thinking it's Monday. But yes, that is correct.
And then it's pretty much like the news article, right? Where, I mean, I know you have questions there, and you expect us to answer each question more specifically, or it's just whatever's relevant?
Yeah, I expect you to answer the questions, just because I just letting you know that, a legitimate answer to the question could be no, or not, or it's not applicable, or there wasn't anything in there. The thing that I just want to just focus on is like, I don't want your opinion on the article in terms of its content, in terms of like whether or not DACA is good or bad, or gun control is good or bad. I don't care right now. There's some people who just started going off on their papers about how like terrible this is, and how there's like, that's great that you feel that way, but that's not the call of the question. I may share your sentiments, as a matter of fact, given the story, but the problem is that that's not what the call of the question is. And then that's how grad school is going to treat you. You can write a great paper, but if it's not the paper, if you didn't write a paper that was what the prompt asked for, you're not going to get a good grade. It doesn't matter how good the paper is. If the paper doesn't answer the question or follow the directions of the prompt, I've seen a paper go in the garbage. And so it's, hey, great paper, didn't answer the call to question D. And that's how it works. So the thing is, you need to make sure that you're watching. Now, I'm not that draconian, but I think the lowest grade I've given so far is a 70. But I will just let you know that if you're getting a 70, or if you're getting a 70, 75, that was a generous 70. It was very likely should have been a 60. I'm being a little generous right now because I don't want to completely deflate people's grades without giving them an opportunity to kind of pick up the slack, which is typical of what happens. Is that the hot newspaper is usually the one that is the least performant, and then people pick up on the journal article analysis and they do a lot better. And Freddie, do you have any comments about people submitting a rough draft, and if they should? Give me a PSA.
Just do it. It'll help you out so much. Yeah, I mean, just simply do it. Just great feedback, better than the writing center. because he actually tells you what's wrong with it, what it, you know, it's applicable to the assignment.
To be fair, I wrote the prompt, so
Yeah, that's true. Um, but yeah, I mean, I found it, you know, I hit personally like I hit like a writing block and then like a or like a writer's block, and instead of like scratching my whole paper, he was able to tell me like just fix a couple sentences or just really a couple words, and it kind of, you know, it really fixed my paper, turn it like completely around. So yeah, just turn in a rough draft if you can.
excellent. Now, with that being said, do I have any questions specifically about the assignment this week? Because the only thing you really have on your plate now is to find those three, at least three journal articles. And then let me just go ahead, and I think this would be a good opportunity to talk about where you're going to find this stuff. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen really quick. By the way, if any of you use Chrome, I just moved over to Microsoft Edge, and it is way better. It does not bog my computer down, and it does all the Chrome extensions. It runs Chrome. It uses a version of Chrome that's pared down, and it's just so much faster. Try it out, Microsoft Edge. I'm finding so many less problems than I had with Chrome. And so what you're going to do is if you go to week 8, and you notice I've actually done something new now. I've actually broken up the sections. So hot news, journal article analysis, and then you're going to see a section where we start getting into the final paper. And then you'll actually see that section broken up too. That way you kind of have a reference of like what was going on those specific weeks if you need to reference them. I figured that was helpful. And you'll notice journal article research. Please be sure to watch this if you haven't done so already. And then also go to video database research tips. This is just a fun little video of that kind of highlights what to do. It's only like 2 minutes long. It's to music and all of that. It was me trying to, you know, be cool in iMovie. A lot of pans and zooms. And then you'll notice right here where the workshop is, and then I'll read the prompt for you. Your task for this week is to find at least 3 scholarly journal articles from the CSUSB OneSearch database. Please reference the above video for instruction on how to use the site. Be sure that the articles are coming from peer-reviewed sources. And as you'll notice when we talk about looking at the database in OneSearch, there's actually a button that says peer-reviewed only. You want to make sure you click on that. Remember, the journal article must be found. The journal articles must meet the following requirements: 9 pages or more in length. Peer-reviewed journal, no dissertations or unpublished manuscripts. So if it says like dissertation or graduate thing, don't use it. And it must be related to your controversial topic. I'm having this other issue with the hot newspapers right now. Is I'm go ahead and I'm referencing back to what people's topics are, and they're not the topics that they chose, and they're just kind of like, I need to write a paper, I'm just going to pick 3 articles of something that happened today, and then I'm just going to write it on that. And I'm like, that's fine, but you're really kind of doing yourself a disservice to the fact that, you know, the whole purpose of the paper was supposed to help you, you know, the secondary purpose of the paper was supposed to help you prep, because you're still going to have to find all that stuff later for the annotated bibliography and for the final. So I don't know how much good it did you doing it at the last minute. You are going to do double the work. So if anybody's here kind of procrastinating on this stuff, don't, please. By the way, Nikita, just as a reference, there's only 3 of you in here. I have to speak for everybody when I'm on here, so I'm not actually speaking to you 3. you 3 are fine.
Yeah, I feel like you mentioned that before too.
Yeah. The other thing that I want to make sure of is I'm giving you the prompt for the actual journal article analysis. It's here at the bottom. And this is the reason I'm giving you this is so you know, it's not like you have to be working on it right now, because how can you? You haven't found the material yet. The reason why I'm giving you this is so you kind of have an idea of where to go, where you're going with it. And the other thing too is I have an example paper. This is a real paper that got a real A. And this will give you an idea of what's going on. Also to kind of focus on, now your citations are going to include page numbers. So I would reference the citations lecture that we had from 2 weeks ago to make sure that you're talking about the citation, that you're including page numbers. That's why I say it's so important to download the PDF version of whatever journal you find, because it's going to give you the PDF. The PDF will give you the page numbers. So that's available. So I would encourage you to read that. I would even just read that tonight and just kind of see what, like, how is the paper kind of set up. I have an example outline of someone who was doing something about bodybuilding supplements. This kind of gives you an idea of just the structure of the paper. And then, and then if you go down here, you'll also notice that there's the guide, which is the same version as what I put right there in the middle of the prompt, but this gives you just an idea of what's going on. So journal article analysis, that's what you're going to be looking at. You're going to be looking at one scholarly journal article and then breaking it down. If you want to go ahead and submit it, make sure that you click on the Google Drive link. Please double check to make sure that when you submit it, that it says rough draft. So when it gets pulled up, so that's something that I would encourage you to just make sure of as you're looking at that. And then after March 30th, this link will close and then this link will open up.
I had a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
So March 30th is during spring break. That's correct. Still turn it in during spring
Honestly,
break.
I didn't even know. It's 2021 and I didn't even bother to look at the spring break calendar. When does spring break end?
Super, zoned out. So I just want to make sure I submit it during it. Spring break goes from March 29th to the 2nd.
To the 2nd?
Yeah.
Literally the week after next week is when we go in spring break.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I mean, I can always push it forward to not be on spring break, because I can't push it. I can't move it back more, because then that's going to interfere with the amount of time you have to actually do the final draft.
Mm.
And the rough draft is optional.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have to turn it in the day of. So you know what? I'm just going to leave it there. It's an optional rough draft. And like the three of you did, you didn't even turn in your rough drafts the day that it was due. You turned them in earlier anyways. I'm just going to leave it there, just because then that gives me an opportunity during the week to just kind of knock those rough drafts out. Besides spring break, what are we going to do? Stay at home?
I mean, I was expecting a break from school because I'm taking 6 classes right now,
Yeah. Oh, oof, that's rough. So I would go, I'm just going to keep it there. Just because, like I was saying, it's optional. And then that gives me an opportunity, because it is spring break, to just, I don't have to teach 2 classes that week. That means I can take that time to knock out your rough drafts.
Okay.
Yeah. That way you're not having, because the thing is, let's say I push it forward to Friday, or like when we came back, then I would push this back, and then the rest of the calendar is all thrown off, and then you guys are rushing stuff later on. I'd rather you not. Cool. So that'll work. Other than that, other questions that I might have about this week and what you're doing in terms of looking for journal articles?
To be clear, the articles can be like from different years, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Different years, different sizes. The only requirement, there's only 3 requirements. One, it actually has something to do with your topic. So that's 1, because I want it to help you for your final. 2, I want it to be 9 pages or longer. And the reason is, I don't just want you to read something long for the sake of it. It's easier to write something from a larger piece of material. It's easier to piece stuff out of it, and you'll probably get more material out of it for your final. That's the second thing. Third thing, it has to be scholarly. It has to be peer reviewed. And the easy way to do that, to make sure that you're just looking at it, once you go ahead and start your search terms, just click that little peer reviewed checkbox. That way, you know you're in the clear.
Got it. Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, because I read the 3 requirements, but I was just making sure Like, what if I find like articles that are like 10 years apart?
You can get it
or,
from
like,
1976 for all I care if you need to, because some people do that. Some people are like talking about like child rearing, right, and child development. So they actually would pull articles from like what people were saying in the 70s and what people were saying in the 80s and then what people are saying now, and actually made a comparative analysis on how even the literature and research is kind of, the attitudes have changed, talking about child trauma and rearing.
Okay. Thank
So
you.
yeah, anything you can pull up the Federalist Papers for all I care. But yeah, that's fine. Anything else, Nikita, Brianna, Freddie? Anything that you guys might be interested in or curious about? And then,
I had a quick question. I'm sorry.
no, go for it. Go for it.
Yeah, so kind of the same thing with my grades. Nothing's changed on my end, and you're saying that's being done today, right? Or
There should be updates going on now. The difference between when I update it and when Blackboard posts it may be different.
okay, so
But I am inputting grades today. I'm finalizing grades today. That way you guys can see what's going on. It's just a matter of me just putting them in by hand.
okay, thank you.
Cool. That's kind of like my email. Okay, and then please last name, then first name. Because then my spreadsheet gets all messed up on Google if you don't put in your, and then this is what you'll see. So like journal article 1, what is the publication? What's the title? Who are the authors? The year of publication? What's the page range? I give an example of how it should look. Please go ahead and write the APA or Chicago bibliography full citation. It's almost like I'm having you just do your citation right then and there for yourself. And then summarize what was covered in the article, 100 to 250 words. So like half a page, less than that. 100 words isn't a lot. Just basically what was in it. And the cool thing is that if you've already summarized it, your annotated bibliography asks for you to do 10 sources and give summaries for each that are about 100 to 150 words. If you do the summary and give it a good thing, you've already knocked out 3 of them. So that's just something to keep in mind. And then,
Or you leave that page. For the page range and page length, it says example, and then it says like page this to this and 13 pages. Is that like the bit that we would be using, or is that like?
Yeah, so you actually would put like page. So let's say the article that you find starts on page 330, and it ends on page 330 or 341, and then you would put in parentheses 11 pages, like that.
But wouldn't the article be like the whole thing, like 341 pages?
No, because the article inside of a journal, there's multiple journals, there's multiple articles inside of a journal. So you're just pulling out a slice of that. So that's why when you pull out that's why I want you to pull the PDF, because when you pull the PDF, it'll actually show you what page number it starts at. And then the citation as well, as you notice, if you go into the citation tools in OneSearch, which I show you on the video, it also demonstrates like what the page range is as well within the citation.
I had a quick question regarding actually the page ranges. I'm not sure if this is too like technical or not, but is the range for the pages like from just the article itself? Because I know my articles include like the references and like that could just be a lot. Does that include the page range, or is it just like what it's talking about before it gets to its
from the front page to the last to the last citation?
Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you.
It's kind of like we were talking about a period or a parenthetical citation. You don't put it until it's at the end, the very end. So yeah, the page range. That's why I'm telling you to get 9, because you're most likely out of those 9 pages going to get 7 pages of material, because you're going to have like a page or 2 of notes or citations.
Yeah, I kind of ran into that problem last night when I was looking at my resources. So
So that's why I'm kind of inflating it a little bit. I used to have it as 10, but then like good stuff was getting cut out. So I dropped it a little bit just so people could include some really good some good work. But that's going to be what we're looking at now. Mind you, next week, what we're doing next week, when we go over these, is whoever's here, I'm going to go over what you found and we're going to discuss it. We're basically going to do an oral version of the paper.
You see, you did that last week. That helped me out for my hot news assignment. That's why it was so easy kind of to type it out.
Mhm.
When I asked you, like, oh, this, and that, you're like, that's your paper. I was like, oh, got it. That's why I didn't turn in a rough draft.
Mhm.
It's also about it. So
Oh, nice.
people should really attend this lecture.
I know, right? We used to
It's
have like 9 to 11 people, you know. Now it's just you guys.
Gosh, once they hear this is optional, okay, they'll never be here.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, is like I can't force people to come.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's just too many. Because I mean, really, I don't have to have any of this. I'm not supposed to in an asymmetrical class. I cannot require that everybody meet up at a certain place in a certain time, because that's the whole point of you signing up for an online class. Problem is, with an online class in this environment, kind of helps to show up and ask some questions, or at least watch this.
And I
If you-
have to add to that too. So I have a class that goes till 4:15, but I still come in here because it still helps me. Even though I'm like a little bit late every time, I
Mhm.
still jump in, you know?
I prefer that. And then the other cool thing is that it gets posted on YouTube, so you can watch like the first 5 minutes that you missed.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like it's like you learn more when you're actually in the class. Because when I watch the videos, I'm like, what? But when I'm present in the class, like it makes sense.
Mhm.
So
So we'll see what happens. But I mean, all you guys are going to be focusing on this week is finding that stuff. That way, come Tuesday, Thursday, we can start talking about it.
sounds good.
All right, awesome. Oh, we will see you guys next week. If you have any other questions, feel free to email me or get a hold of me and let me know what's up. Take care.
thank you.